Good morning! It's the evening rant. I haven't had one for a little while, so I thought I would. We're here in the attic in the train room. If you're interested in model trains, I'll put a link to my other channel in the description. So the first thing is, I'm going to ask you a question. Which is the hardest number to break in golf? Is it 100, 90 or 80? Against a par 72 course. So I'll give you my opinion later while you have a think about why one of those might be the hardest number to break. In the meantime, we have a traitor on this channel. We do. You know, if your mate buys new golf clubs, do you run off and tell his wife? Of course you don't. We're all in it together, aren't we? We all do the same thing. We all buy a new driver, a new putter, a new set of irons and quietly get them into the bag where we hope the wife doesn't notice. Well, after the irons video, a gentleman called Jimmy, who works at the place where my wife works, in the same building, he watched that video and he ran straight off to my wife and told her that I had got new golf clubs. Jimmy, you're a traitor, mate. You're a traitor to your golfing buddies. And I've got a message for you. Here it is.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you are looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
Now, Jimmy, all you've got to work out is whether I was kidding or not. Right, non-story of the week. The non-story of the week was Rory McIlroy's driver failed the COR test at the USPGA and he had to put a new head on his driver. This is nothing special. Every week, 20 to 25 golfers have to have their driver tested. The reason they have to have their driver tested is professionals play an awful lot of golf, more than us. They hit their driver an awful lot more than us. You know, they'll play a Tuesday practice round, the Pro-Am, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They'll warm up before every round, and most of them will warm down after a round and go and hit some more balls. Even if they had a perfect round, they'll go and hit some more balls. And because they hit the ball so damned hard, their swing speed is so high, what happens is the face gets worn, shall we say, and so it becomes a fraction more springy. Now this is done in private. It's a 5-minute job to put the head onto a machine and press down on it and see what the coefficient of restitution is. And they don't shout about it. You probably didn't even know that it happened until somebody on the inside leaked that to the press. And they leaked it to Fox News. News being a word that I probably wouldn't apply to Fox, but there you go. And of course they ran with it, and without saying it quite out loud, they insinuated that Rory must have cheated in winning the Masters with his non-conforming driver. And of course he didn't speak to the press about it. He didn't attend any of the usual press things at the USPGA because he didn't want to talk about it because it's a non-story. And then of course Scotty Scheffler came out and said, well, mine failed as well. But there was no insinuation that Scotty Scheffler had cheated in his win the previous week. So it's a complete non-story, but Fox tried to make something of it. In fact, you sat at home now, if your driver's 2 or 3 years old, it's probably non-conforming, but they don't test us because there's millions of us. But at tournaments all around the world, they will pick 20 people at random who haven't been tested for a little while, and they'll just put the head on the machine and then they say, off you go to the tour track, get a new head. It's no big deal. It's a non-story, but there you go. Just like in the same way that they do a drugs urine test on pros every now and then. Another non-story, unless of course somebody tests positive for beta blockers or cocaine or some other recreational pharmaceuticals. So, breaking 100, breaking 90, breaking 80, which is the most difficult one, do you think? Well, I've been thinking about this because obviously I've got to make videos. And I thought breaking 100 is quite easy. You know, if you're shooting in that 101 to 106 range, breaking 100 is very simply go and get yourself a couple of lessons, get your stance, your posture, your grip, your aim correct, get that little bit of takeaway correct, go away and work on it, and then go and work on a little bit of chipping and putting, and lo and behold, you will break 100 like that. It's a piece of cake. If you're breaking 80, well, you can hit all the clubs in your bag, and you've probably got a stock shape. So you know, if you're shooting 80 to 84, if you're regularly in this sort of, in that kind of like bandwidth, you've got a stock shot even. You've got a shape, whether it be a draw or a fade, it doesn't matter which. Your short game's pretty decent inside 100 yards, your chipping and putting's okay, but you're just not breaking through. Well, the way you break through that is not quite swinging flat out. If you can do that smooth swing instead of that trying to hit it too hard swing, if you work a bit more on your 30, 40, 50 yarders and your chipping and your putting, then you will break through that 80. Especially if you apply the most important part, which is a bit of self-discipline in matching the club that you hit off the tee to the width of the target. If you can leave yourself fuller shots into the green rather than fiddly shots, you're going to break through that 80. It's not as difficult as you might perceive. If your best is an 81 and you're regularly shooting in that range of 80 to 85, you know, getting through it isn't that difficult if you apply your mind and a little bit of practice in the areas that you know that you need to practice. I've always thought breaking 90 was the hard one. And the reason why I say that is you can break 100 with lofted clubs. You know, you can use a 4 hybrid, something around 22 degrees of loft, or a 7 wood, 21 degrees of loft. You can use lofted clubs. Lofted clubs means backspin. Backspin means less side spin. Less side spin means straighter shots. But to break 90, you've got to start putting clubs in the bag with which you are not proficient. You know, you're going to have to start using a 3 wood. You're going to have to use your driver. And then you lose your direction. And in losing direction, you're going to rack up more penalties. More penalties than you did playing safely as when you're trying to break 100. You've got to take more risk. So that means more lessons, more practice, more dedication, more time, because time is the one thing as golfers don't have, because we work for a living, and then there's family, there's kids, there's the house to look after, and all manner of other things. Finding time is the difficult bit. So that's my opinion. I think breaking 90 is the harder, simply because you've got to use clubs that you are not proficient with in order to do so. I think you could break 90 by stepping up from, say, a 4 hybrid to a 3 hybrid to get 19 degrees in your hand, or a 5 wood to get 18 degrees in your hand. But ultimately you need to make more pars, and to make more pars you can't play along par 4 as a 4 hybrid, a wedge and a wedge. You know, you've got to get that little bit further down the hole. And I know that strokes gained says you'll shoot lower scores if you get as close to the green as you possibly can. Well, on those holes where you don't need to get as close to the green as you possibly can, you know, the holes of 280 to 320 yards, that's when you put that loft back in your hand and hang back at a full wedge and a full 9-iron. That's just my opinion. You may have a completely different opinion. And if you are stuck on breaking through a particular number, why don't you just write it down, put it in the comments. The final bit, music. I don't use it all the time, but I do use it from time to time. There was a music website that I used at the start called Ben Sound. They had a few free tracks, but if you wanted the other tracks you had to sign up. So I signed up for a year. It cost me £100 for the year, and during that year you could download as much music as you liked with a license and use it for as long as you liked. But I've always had problems with Ben Sound. They fall into two categories. Category 1 is somebody around the world will download one of the tracks and then they'll put it onto a different music sharing website and claim it as their own. And then what will happen is when I upload a video, YouTube will say, well, this music belongs to this guy, he's going to get all the money from your video. So then you have to get into a dispute, and Ben Sound will actually help you in that dispute because they are the actual rights owners. And so then you will get your money from the video, and the guy who's pulling the scam will be removed from YouTube. But you do get other problems with Ben Sound. I've got one right at the moment on the Irons video. So somebody has created some music, they've uploaded it to Ben Sound, I've bought it, I've got a license to use it, and then 3 years later, when they don't seem to be making very many sales on Ben Sound, what they'll do is they'll upload it to a different music sharing website, they'll change the title of the music. So I've got a track called Bullhorns that I use. On a different site it's called Country Life. So now I've had a copyright strike from this other music sharing website saying you don't have a license, we'd like all the money from your video please. Well, actually they don't say please, they just say we're taking all the money from your video. So I've had to go through all the paperwork of saying, look, I've got the right to use this stuff. It used to be called Bullhorns. It's on the Ben Sound website, blah, blah, blah. Here's my license number. Now, normally that gets resolved within a couple of hours. Normally I fire that back into the system. It is resolved. And then I will get the money from that video. At the moment it is not resolved, and it may not get resolved because of the difficulties. So all that music that I bought 3 or 4 years ago from Ben Sound, I can't damn well use it now. I spent £100 and it's worthless because any time that I use it I'm going to be getting copyright strikes, and it's an absolute pain in the arse with the paperwork to get it sorted out. So I think I might just delete it all and I'll just keep on using Purple Planet. But I did like so many of the tracks that I bought from Ben Sound, but it's proving too difficult to use them. Another spanner in the works of making YouTube videos. So that Irons video, I can't remember how many people have watched it so far. It's in excess of 1,000. I get roughly £5 per 1,000 views, so I might have lost out on about £7.50, which will now go to someone else unless the dispute gets fixed, and then I might actually get it back. It's the more I do YouTube, the more bloody disappointing it is at times. But I'll just stick to Purple Planet, even though there aren't that many tracks on Purple Planet that I... Sorry, there's quite a few I like, but they're not all sort of relatable to hitting a golf ball. Silly thing is I used 2 Ben soundtracks on that Irons video. I only used a few seconds of each. So it's the one on the 15th green, that's the one they're complaining about. The one on the 16th tee, nobody's complaining about that one. Bloody bizarre. So that's it for the evening rant this time. Except I will say, Jimmy, you're a bloody traitor, mate. And I know where you work. I will find you. Ta-ra.